If the gravitational pull of the universe would be even 1% stronger, the conditions would not allow us to exist. If Earth was slightly closer or slightly further from the Sun, life as we know it would most likely not be here. It's the universe's way of saying that even the tiniest factors have huge consequences. This fragility echoes through the story of Challenger, where a seemingly insignificant O-ring in the boosters with a diameter of only 7 millimeters led to a catastrophe, a collapse of an 80 tons heavy space shuttle with 7 astronauts on board. This serves as a profound reminder that greatness is built upon small, meticulous decisions. And this is true more than ever when it comes to human spaceflight, but equally so when it comes to your life. At 17 years old, I became one of the youngest analog astronauts in the world. Analog astronauts are something like guinea pigs for space missions, who do experiments here on Earth, so that when the real astronauts go out there, everything is backed up by science and data. So that is exactly what we did for 10 days. We were observed and tested, both physically and mentally, and in complete isolation, conducted a set of experiments to help improve the future of human spaceflight. I served as a communications officer, a data analyst, and as you can see here, a self-proclaimed 3D printer repair woman. And as you can imagine, every action, every decision we made was magnified under the glass of impact on the potential of future mission success. But fortunately, we were not completely alone. We had mission control, MCC for short, who constantly overlooked everything we did. A big brother, if you will. We had to trust MCC 100% with their decisions, even though sometimes they made it really difficult to do so. Let me tell you, when you get locked up in a few meters wide habitat like this, with 3 strangers, on day 1, it takes all the energy you have just to get used to the new environment. Yet, they had different plans. While I looked over our food supplies and our medic charged the backup power generator, our commander was tasked to create flashcards with emergency procedures, and through an agreement with MCC, made us act them out over dinner. So, instead of enjoying the last fresh fruits, we were forced to run around in spacesuits, acting out each scenario, figuring out the steps we would need to undertake if the alarm went off. On day 2, we were asked to create inventory of the most commonly used objects in the habitat, such as knives, tapes, 3D printer filaments, etc. As for the crew, this was probably the most mundane task we could imagine. After all, there we were, selected to do cutting-edge science, and yet there we were, playing count the inventory. And let's be honest, the idea of somehow cheating the system probably crossed our minds, since at the end of the day, who really cares if you have 3 or 4 rolls of black filament? But we were there to do a job, and thus we continued exploring every drawer. Somewhere along the way, we stumbled upon an ozonator, a white box the size of a laptop with instructions on the back to be used to purify air. Obviously, we didn't think much of it, so we put it right back, yet noting its position. Little did we know, we would have to use it days later in an emergency scenario to save our lives. The last night, we finished our mission reports, documented all the experiments, and were ready to go to our bunk beds for one last time. When the red alarm went off, it echoed through the whole habitat with a message on our phones. Crew, this is an emergency situation. The scenario chosen for us was an HCl gas leak caused by a meteorite shower. We had to undergo a series of procedures we practiced on day one and hide inside an emergency shelter, also known as the bathroom. With a little bit of chemistry, we quickly managed to neutralize the gas leak. Just to be informed, this caused depressurization in the sleeping module. Therefore, our commander had to leave the shelter and go tape off the hole in the wall. But this left one more problem. We need to decontaminate the air. And that's exactly when our good old ozonator came in handy. We knew exactly where to find. But there's still one more issue. Where do you plug an ozonator if the power is off in the whole habitat? Well, remember the backup power generator our medic went to charge on day one? And to most, this might sound like a scene from a Hollywood movie, but to us, at that point, it was the only thing standing between us and mission success. We managed to pass with flying colors, one of the highest scores ever awarded, 11 out of 12 points, which allowed us to conclude the mission completed. Yet, if we didn't practice the emergency scenarios on day one, we would not have been even close to such a reaction time. If we had cut corners on the inventory task, we would have never found the ozonator, and without it, we would have died in minutes. Of course, this death would be rather theoretical, since we were in no real danger, and you probably do not face life or death situations on the daily either. But most of you definitely did face situations this applies to. On day one, we had no idea we would be in an emergency scenario, and it would have been so much easier for us to say, that's not going to happen to us. Probably the same way you'd say, this won't be on the exam when you're cramming the night before. We've all been there. But it somehow always is there. And the emergency situations happen. So never underestimate the power of small, mundane tasks. And do them right, with attention to detail. And when I'll be coming back to the analog environment in a few months, this time as a mission control specialist myself, this is the lesson I'd like to bring with me. But why should you care? Well, because you are the mission control of your life. There's no one behind the camera. You call the shots. You can walk out of here and decide to do anything in the world, and no one can really stop you. You decide the mission objectives. But that also means you need to be able to decide to do the hard things. You must be able to say, this is when we practice the emergency scenarios. So when the big alarm of life comes, you're ready. Thank you.